Hello. In this video, I want to talk about the citric acid cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle, also known as the TCA cycle. This is in a series of videos on the catabolism of glucose, so the breaking down of glucose that takes place within the cell. Basically, glucose is converted eventually into forms that can be used to provide energy. So, ATP in particular. So there are four steps in the catabolism of glucose. Again, cats are bad. Cats destroy things. They claw things. Cats break things down. And so the four steps in the breakdown of glucose, the catabolism of glucose, are one, glycolysis. I've done two videos on glycolysis, which is a 10-step process that basically starts with glucose and breaks it down into two pyruvate molecules, which are basically a four-carbon molecule. And so that's the first step. The second step in the breakdown of glucose, the catabolism of glucose, is called the pyruvate oxidation. This is so pyruvate is what's left after glycolysis, and so ox loss, oil, rig, oxidation is loss, oil. It's losing electrons. So the oxidation of the pyruvate is the second step in the catabolism. Let me just briefly cover that here. So we have two pyruvate molecules as a result of glycolysis. And the glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm of the cell. But the oxidation of the pyruvate is going to take place within the mitochondrion. In fact, it's going to take place in the mitochondrial matrix, which is in the middle of the mitochondrion. And so the pyruvate is first transformed into an acetyl group, which is H3CO something. That's the group, and it's attached to something. It could be as simple as a carbon, but anyway, it's transformed into an acetyl group, and then its date for the night is coenzyme A. CoA, ding dong, hi, I'm CoA. Coenzyme A, I'm here to take you to the mitochondrion for our date in the matrix. And so coenzyme A picks up the acetyl group, and the result is acetyl-CoA, coenzyme A, acetyl-CoA. It's very embarrassing because the date farts out a CO2. Oh, excuse me. But they go on the date anyway. And one NADH is produced in this process. So the pyruvate is taken into the mitochondrion matrix. It is transformed into an acetyl group. It's hooked up to a coenzyme A. It farts a CO2, and they have a NADH baby at the end of the date. So that's the second step in the catabolism of glucose. Now, I'm going to spend the rest of this video on the citric acid cycle, but I hope to do another video on the fourth step of the catabolism, which is oxidative phosphorylation. Phosphorylation is the addition of phosphate, okay? If you phosphorylate something, you give it phosphate. Oxidation, is the loss of electron, ox loss, oil. And so it adds phosphate and loses electrons at the same time. This is the final step, and I'll do another video on it. It takes place, I think, in the inner mitochondrial membrane. The inner membrane of the mitochondrion, I believe, is where this takes place, but I hope to do another video on that one that involves complex 1, complex 2, complex 3, complex 4, and the mysterious Q. So that's the last video in this series. But for now, it's time for the citric acid cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle, aka the TCA cycle. Okay, overview of the citric acid cycle. Well, it goes round and round and round and round and round. It's a process that loops. It happens around and around and around and around and around and around and around. Okay, so stuff gets poured in, stuff comes out, it keeps going around and around and around and around. Okay, it takes place in the mitochondrial matrix also, in the middle. and it takes 8 steps, like the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. Um, in the end, it results in a 3-1. So remember, glycolysis was a 2-2-2, wasn't it? We got 2 ADPs net, we got 2 NADHs, and we got 2 pyruvate molecules. That was the end of the glycolysis 2-2-2. Well, the end of the citric cycle is a 3-1. 3 NADHs and 1 FADH2 molecules. Now, there's some couple of farts. It farts twice, 2 CO2 molecules, but who cares about carbon dioxide, right? So 3-1, 3 NADHs, 1 FADH2 is going to come out of the citric acid cycle. Well, this is a lot of detail. I don't know how much you're expected to memorize of all this, but this is the eightfold path. It comes in here on the acetyl-CoA, and then citrate, isocitrate, alpha ketoglutarate, succinyl coenzyme A, succinate, really sucks. Fumarate, very angry because it's lost of water. Malate, and then oxaloacetate, and then we start all over again. This is the citric cycle. Well, let's break it on down. So step number 1 of the citric cycle, a citrate is formed. So the acetyl-CoA comes in, add a little water. Basically, the coenzyme A taxi, CoA taxi, lets go, goes back somewhere, maybe to transport another pyruvate molecule. This step lets off a lot of energy. It's exergonic. Remember that? Endogonic takes in energy. Exergonic lets off a bunch of energy. So this is citrate, the first step. We go to citrate. I always think of oranges. I wish I had an orange that I could eat an orange while I'm doing this video. I could use an orange. I do have some orange juice. But anyway, the first step gets a citrate, okay, in the citric cycle. Step number 2, it becomes a twin, isocitrate. Iso means same. So step 1 is citrate. Step 2 is isocitrate. It loses a water and it adds a water. I don't know why. Make up your mind. Either take the water or not. But anyway, in the process of forming its isomer, isocitrate, it loses a water, adds a water. Okay, good to know. So citric acid, citrate, isocitrate. In step 3, it's oxidized. And it forms this crazy thing. Crazy man. If you have too much orange juice, you're going to go crazy. Citrate, isocitrate, and here it becomes alpha ketoglutarate. Well, I'm not going to drink that. Who wants ketoglutarate? Farts out of CO2, makes an NADH. So remember, we're going to make 3 NADHs in this cycle. There's the first one in step 3. Makes an NADH. You can see that in there. Okay, step 4, more oxidation, more farting. So in stage 4, we're going to fart off another CO2. See, CO2. We're going to make another NADH. There's our second NADH. And it goes from this alpha keto, the keto diet's just crazy, So we did citrate, isocitrate, alpha ketoglutarate, and then now we're going to end with succinyl coenzyme A. Oh, there's the coenzyme A came back. But we're going to fart off another CO2. We're going to get our second NADH, and it's going to end up with this succinyl coenzyme A. Okay. Step 5, I'll trade you a phosphate. So we trade off CoA, coenzyme A, for a phosphate. And at this point, it's going to produce either an ATP, adenosine triphosphate, or its lesser known guinea pig-like cousin, guanine triphosphate, GDP. So anyway, so depending on what kind of animal or what kind of cell it is, it's going to produce either an ATP or a GTP here. Where again, bat guano. This is the guanine triphosphate. Step 6, Dehydration. Give me some water. Give me some water. It goes from a succinate to a fumarate. And it's fuming because, of course, it has no water. But here's where the FADH2 is produced in this particular part of the process. So it went from, in step 5, it went from sucky COA to succinate, both of which are sucky. And then it gets angry from succinate, to fumarate because it dehydrated. Water. Give me some water. And then it adds the water back. Again, make up your mind. Are you going to dehydrate or do you want to hydrate? Here, hydrolysis, it goes from fumarate to malate. So it stops fuming, and now it's just bad. It's mala. But anyway, it goes from fumarate to malate by adding a water. At least it's not angry anymore. And then the final step, it's oxidized back to the beginning, this oxaloacetate, which was part of the starting of the process. And the final third, NADH, is produced, and we're ready to start all over again. Malate to oxaloacetate. I hope you don't have to know all those things. So again, what are the products of the citric acid cycle? It starts with 2 carbon-based molecules, acetyl CoA. 2 CO2 molecules are farted off each cycle. 3 NADHs are produced each cycle. 1 FADH2 is produced each cycle. 1 either GTP, guanine triphosphate, or ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is produced. The cycle both builds stuff up, anabolic, and breaks stuff down, catabolic. So the process is amphi, which means both, amphibolic, because it both builds and tears down. It can't make up its mind. Here's the whole cycle again in miniature, if you have good enough eyes to see it. It starts with this acetyl-CoA coming in, then it goes to citrate, then to isocitrate, then to crazy keto, then to succinyl CoA, then to succinate. Yes, Nate is succinate. And then he loses a water and he fumarates, but he gets it back, and then he malates, and then he lets off it gets his final NADH, and then he's oxaloacetate. Anyway, and then we start all over again. Well, I tried. It's the citric acid cycle. If you were to memorize all this stuff, you'd memorize all this stuff. But the citric acid cycle in detail by none other than Ken Schenk. We'll see you next time on oxidative phosphorylation. Phosphorylation. Oxidative phosphorylation. Phosphorylation. Say it. Phosphorylation. I said it. There it is. Next video coming on up.